Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. I do hope everyone's had a great week out there so far as we're about to head off into our weekend. There is a lot to talk about in this morning's video, and the first thing we'll discuss is the tropics. Two main topics we'll speak on. One being the remnants of Invest 93L, which once upon a time we thought maybe could become Dexter. It did not. But this could kind of wrap around a high pressure, maybe have a chance to redevelop off the coast of the southeast, the northern Gulf. So we'll speak on that, and then we'll talk about the tropical Atlantic way out there in what we call the MDR, main development region. There are signs that it's beginning to wake up, which it tends to slowly wake up when we start to get to the end of July, really into August. And so is any of these tropical waves that could get going, do they pose any sort of threat? We'll speak on that. We'll get detailed, and then we'll talk about today's weather. A lot to speak on for just the lower 48 over the next couple days into our weekend, as we are going to run the risk of strong to severe thunderstorms and flash flooding. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And of course, if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the leftovers of Invest 93L. It continues just to bring some shower and storm activity, and I'll actually have to circle it on the map here because it's hard to really separate it from any of these other blobs that you're seeing of color on your screen. But this is it right here. We thought, once upon a time this could become Dexter. It did not. Remained an Invest. What we will watch for is this to potentially sort of wrap up here or come up here and then maybe get slung back off the coast of the southeast and maybe even wrap back around to where it just went through over areas of the northern Gulf. There is the possibility of this. So we could actually have another shot at what we call homegrown activity, tropical activity, sometime over the next several days. So we'll see if that happens. I'm going to explain what the model guidance is showing that could potentially support what I just showed you here on the map. So outside of that, the rest of the Gulf and the Caribbean and just the Southwest Atlantic, there's no signs of tropical development now. Once we do speak on the MDR, main development region, way out in the Atlantic, we will show you another view of this. Are we seeing anything right at this moment? So we'll speak on that. But moving past this, and I'll have to get this back off your screen here, and looking at the actual radar from the remnants of this Invest, we do have some tropical moisture out here in eastern Texas, areas of Louisiana, but as you can tell, there's no defined spin on radar. You wouldn't even know that this is a tropical system if I didn't tell you. And I mean, this really was never a tropical system, just an Invest, an area that was, if you will, under investigation for tropical development and just never developed. But just some tropical moisture hanging out down here in the central and western Gulf states. So it's really not a huge deal. It's brought some heavy rains, but all in all, it could have been worse. So let's take a look at the latest GFS from this morning. So you're going to see blobs of green, which is rain, some splashes of yellow and orange and red. This is heavier shower and storm activity from this output from global models. It's not like short range models. It's going to show you like just a more pretty picture of what these storms could look like, a more defined picture. So just when you see the green, just think of it as that, which is what it is, just tropical moisture shower and storm activity. So we're going to start off this evening. You're just going to see a lot of greens up here, up here in Virginia. This is just your thunderstorm activity you're going to get today. We get into tomorrow, you're not going to see really anything that makes your eye go to a certain area. But what we watch for is this area kind of swinging, through here. I do think this area is about to fill in, and then we got to watch right into here. We're going to get just a lot of colors that show up on your screen. That's moisture. So, we get this moving here in time, and it looks like the GFS run is still running, so hopefully we still get a good bit of this run. And as we start to get into the later portion of this weekend, we get into Sunday, we get into Monday, and then we get into around Tuesday morning of next week. You start to develop some sort of weak low pressure, just lower pressure in general off the coast of the southeast. So once again, we're going to have a shot at something trying to get going off the coast of the southeast. Now, just persistent ridging in place, which is, by the way, just going to scorch us over the next, really the foreseeable future across the southern tier of the country. This moisture could actually ride back through this area again, drop a lot of tropical rains across Florida. You see the 10-11 millibar low over Florida. And then it's going to try to dip back over the open waters of the northern Gulf. We'll have a shot to, I think, develop once again. Now, whether this is the origins of, Invest 93L, not quite sure. Regardless, a lot of moisture this time of year. If it gets tossed over the open waters of the Gulf or the Southwest Atlantic, the waters are warm enough for tropical development well into the 80s, and we could certainly see it. So on this particular run, the GFS, it gets a lot of moisture over the Gulf and, never really truly develops much, but you can see how the energy pinwheels back off the coast of the southeast once again. Now, another, I would say, better way to look at this is precipitation values in the atmosphere. So, these areas in red, that's over 2-inch precipitation water values. And once you get over that, just think of that as just the atmosphere is really loaded with moisture. You can get a downpour and it'll just squeeze out every bit of moisture in the atmosphere. So think of this as just a lot of tropical moisture, right? So I'm going to get this in motion here. I'm actually going to have to re-click this and re-click that just to get this in the latest panels here. So we get into Saturday. What you're going to notice is a lot of that deeper tropical moisture sort of going across the mid-south. And then as we get into the end of the weekend, by the way, nice cold front moving. You can tell how dry air moves in the northeast. But let's remain focused on this. A lot of tropical moisture starts to show up over the Carolinas and Georgia, and then you start to see some of those purples on your screen, like the 2.5-inch precipitation values. I mean, that is true deep tropical moisture. And then, just rich moisture begins to show up here. So it tells me that something is trying to get going, a lot of deep moisture in this area. And if that can tap into that Gulf Stream that rides right off the coast of the southeast, this could get kind of just a push that it needs to develop. So, this energy sort of just hangs, out off the coast of the southeast as we're getting in the next Tuesday, and then we're getting into Wednesday morning, and there it is, just a big slug of deep tropical moisture over the northern Gulf. This will have a shot to try to develop into something. So you can actually see, if I put this in motion, let's back it up to about next Wednesday evening. If I go into Thursday, you can see a little bit of a spin on your screen, right? So it's interesting. It's wild, honestly. Let's see if we can get the best color showing up here. Let's go with just light blue. Kind of starts here, goes up here, sort of dries out, then it gets more moist once again, kind of in this area, gets going, then it dives back down here. So interesting stuff. I don't know, you guys might have seen stuff being tossed around social media about the idea of this, and it's a legit possibility. Is it an overly concerning, threatening scenario, catastrophic or anything like that? No, but it could bring a lot of rain to areas that just saw it from the Invest just moved through. Another way to look at this is 850 millibar energy in the atmosphere, vortices, just energy in the lower levels of the atmosphere, like 6,000 feet, mile above our heads. So once you see these kind of just splashes of color, just the blues and the greens and the yellows and even the oranges and reds will show up, that's just energy. And if I put this in motion, you'll see a little bit of a broad spin here. So it tells me that, something is trying to get going here. And really, as we get into about this time next week, it actually gets this all the way back into the western Gulf, closer to the Texas coastline, and plows that energy into Texas. So whether that energy is just some sort of just energy, just as far as some downpours and storms, not sure. But no model guidance is showing, a full-fledged tropical system or anything right now, but model guidance does not always do well. It did pretty well with this Invest, I would say, but it also did awful with Chantal that made landfall in the Carolinas. So why is it kind of, doing that weird directional flow, right? Well, if you look right here, and I'm just going to honestly stop it right here. I'm not even going to put this in motion, but this is for 12Z Monday, July 21st. So if you look really closely, you'll see these lines, and there's like little almost arrowheads kind of embedded into them. This is the flow at 250 millibars, so 40,000 feet up in the air. So the flow, and there's some sort of central high pressure here, and the flow's kind of going like this around that, and then it's kind of going like this, and then it kind of drops down right here. So if you've been watching the several minutes prior to this graphic, you'll know that that is the flow that the tropical moisture is taking. So it's going around this upper ridging in place. The flow in the atmosphere supports just sort of it's just a rotation. So, it makes sense why it's doing what it's doing, sort of a repeating pattern. And most of your more enhanced flow is up here. And that's why I do think we'll have rounds of strong to severe thunderstorm activity there. So we'll get into that later in the video. But that's the reason why, this tropical moisture is going to do what's going to do. Now, as far as rainfall between now and, say, the next week, a lot of rain up here in the Mid-South, Ohio Valley, down to the Mid-Atlantic, the upper Southeast. A few inches of rain is possible in these areas. But then we drop it down into, say, the Deep South. There's kind of a void of rain almost in like these areas right here. And that is because your actual central high pressure is going to be in here. So most of your action is going to go like this, like that, and then like that. So that's why, Atlanta, Birmingham, really ain't showing a whole lot of rain because high pressure could be just hanging around that area, flows going around this area. So you can see once again, rainfall totals are spiking as far as what's being forecast in some of these same areas. Now, a lot of this right here is for what's, going to happen today into tomorrow. But you see what I'm saying? Florida looking like a lot of rain's coming again. Your drought has been knocked out, so that's good news. But you don't want too much rain too fast, right? So now, moving past that, and we're looking at an update on the tropical Atlantic, or the MDR. So this is way out in the eastern Atlantic. This is Africa. Now, what you see here is just these different colors here. This indicates colder cloud tops and some of these yellows, oranges, reds, things like that. So we kind of have these tropical waves out here. We got one just emerging, off the west coast of Africa. And, a little bit of energy here, but, outside of that, nothing too crazy. So this is a decent looking tropical wave. We got energy coming off North Africa. Don't let me say South America. Sometimes I don't know, my brain just thinks weird, but I know that's Africa. But I'll do that every once in a while for whatever reason, or I'll say that this is the east coast of Africa when it's the west coast. So anyways, moving forward here, there is some energy out here, but all in all, it's nothing that, there's no tropical waves that look threatening or anything like that. They wouldn't be threatening anyways that far out. Now, we look a little bit closer on what we call the Central Atlantic, and that is the, Lesser Antilles. This is the Greater Antilles, getting, closer to the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, things like that, right? So we kind of put our eyes down here. Is there anything that we're watching? Not really. We got some blowups of convection here, but they immediately kind of fall apart. There's nothing too crazy that we're seeing right at this moment. So, just that's current conditions. Now, we skip ahead into, say, early next week, and this is starting off around, next Tuesday morning, the 22nd of July. Now, you're just going to see greens and splashes of yellow and orange down here. But is there any defined low pressure that gets going? We get into Wednesday, I would watch this one. This looks like a chunkier area of moisture, if you will, right? Sort of a deeper low pressure, and it does occasionally pop off that L there, but then it kind of weakens and diminishes and doesn't quite make it. And then we have, at this point we're getting past 10 days, so kind of an unreliable time frame, right? But then we get some more waves here. There's a lot of tropical moisture down here, but nothing defined gets going, guys. But what we're seeing here, to me, by the way, we're already getting into August at the end of some of these runs. The year's just flying by, right? What we're seeing here is just more moisture starting to get going out here in the tropical Atlantic. And there's signs that, hey, some of these waves have a shot to develop. Just because they have a shot to develop doesn't mean that they're a threat, though. Now, what about the GFS? Now, same thing, we'll start it off for this coming Tuesday morning. Does have a wave right here, 10-11 millibar low showing up on this next Tuesday. And, the kind of the moisture from this sort of gets into the Lesser Antilles, Greater Antilles, but, it never develops, right? Anything after that? Well, this is as far out as we can go on the GFS, and we will take it to the OOZ, see if it shows anything. We go 10 days out, we get past day 10, so it's around day 10, right? A little low right here, but the moisture is sort of just surging across this area now. Doesn't look like the Atlantic basin is being dominated by desert dust anymore from Africa, right? So, at this point we keep going, and we're just in a very unreliable time frame at this point, but nothing too crazy stands out. We're not getting, a couple model runs showing you just an all-out hurricane, but we are, at this point, we're in August. So the ends of the runs of some of these, the Euro and the GFS runs are starting to get us to early August now. Pretty wild. Now, another way to look at this is well, in this case, 500 millibar energy. So this is energy in about the mid-levels of the atmosphere, 18,000 feet, right? So you're just going to see these little areas of energy down here. Let's get this in motion here if we can. And we start off this weekend, and I'm going to get this in motion really fast. So you see this little areas like here's little Vort max here, little Vort right here, areas of energy, just little waves. And there's energy associated with them. Like this one, tries to make the long run here. And I think this is the one that the ensemble guidance is really picking up on. Here comes another one right here coming off Africa. So there's little signs that, things are slowly starting to wake up out here. Now, same thing with the latest GFS. See this in motion here. Tropical tidbit's been really finicky lately. But we get into about midway next week, just, and there's not much on the GFS, I'll be honest. Not a whole lot. But, we take a look, say, at the Euro Ensemble guys between now and next week. And there's a few members showing up, just a few or several members maybe out of the 51 members off this, off the EPS. Now we do go all the way to about, let's say, 10 days out. If you notice, there is a couple members showing up here near Louisiana. That's from that wraparound scenario that I mentioned. Now, I will tell you, there's a couple members here. There's one straggler here, and this is obviously an outlier. It's 1 out of 50, right? That tries to cross all the way into the Caribbean, all the way into the Gulf. It's kind of a little bit of a stronger low pressure. But it's an outlier, right? So, what last thing you look at here is the GFS ensemble. Now, this does show a few stronger members here, but it looks like they're about to recurve out to sea, and it shows some members kind of dancing around here. Now, the last thing I'll show you here is the chances of a tropical depression developing. And, it keeps increasing. For example, in this kind of mute orange-looking color, that's a 60 to 70% chance of a tropical depression developing out here in the central Atlantic between now and the next 10 days. The chances have increased also near Louisiana for that wraparound feature. You can see this entire area that I drew has a shot at some tropical development. Maybe some stuff out here developing too. This would just head on further north in the Atlantic. But you can see signs that the MDR is trying to wake up. The main development region is what that stands for. So nothing threatening, nothing concerning, but it's a sign that, we're getting closer to that more steadier rise in hurricane activity, which really happens in early August. So as far as today's weather, some things to talk about for sure. We do have some severe thunderstorms rumbling. Let's get this back going, glitching a little bit. We got some severe thunderstorms rumbling through the central areas of South Dakota, more so just rain up in North Dakota. This thing's kind of glitching out here, but there is some rain and storm activity across Kansas. Now, let's just pause this because that's annoying me. Across Kansas and Oklahoma, we got a lot of rain. Just congealed up, like I said, in eastern Texas, Louisiana, and then we got some rain across the Ohio Valley areas of the Midwest, and a little bit of rain across the southern and central Rockies. As far as watches, warnings, and advisories, it is hot, it is humid across the southern tier of the country. It's starting to heat up everywhere. We got heat advisories, we got extreme heat warnings in this kind of purple color here. Flood watches continue for southern Louisiana, and then across areas of the Ohio Valley, the central Apps into the mid-Atlantic. And you mix this with heat advisories also. If anytime you have flood watches and heat advisories at the same time, it's going to be hotter than Hades, and it's going to be very, very humid. So heat advisories up for the southern tip of Florida also, and you got some red flag warnings out west. So let's talk about the pattern today. We do have a slight risk across areas of the Midwest. Marginal risk does extend back into the central and northern Rockies. And we got a slight risk closer to home here in central South Carolina, but it's in Virginia and North Carolina. So, of course, let's zoom into this slight risk. Okay, so Sioux Falls, Sioux City, you're right in the middle of this. Gets just about down to Des Moines, almost down to Omaha, gets down to Broken Bow, and gets all the way up to Brookings. So, what's driving this? Guys, there's a 5% risk of a tornado in Sioux Falls, Sioux City today, within 25 miles in a given location. 2% risk of a tornado in this green area down to Des Moines. Okay. Wind threat, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location. And there is a hail threat. So, a decent risk of all hazards in this area. I would not be surprised if this upgrades to an enhanced risk for a very small area. But a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. Now, I'll kind of go down here. Marginal risk goes through areas of Missouri just south of St. Louis, goes through areas of Tennessee, Kentucky, kind of doing this slow for you guys, down to North Carolina, up into West Virginia, D.C., and then here's our secondary slight risk for areas of the upper southeast and mid-Atlantic. So Charlottesville, Richmond, Norfolk, down into Greenville, North Carolina, Raleigh, the Raleigh-Durham area, over to Roanoke, Lynchburg, slight risk, level 2 out of 5. Tornado threat, sub 2%, but of course you never can rule it out. 15% risk though in the yellow of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the hail threat, it's not very high. So the risk of excessive rainfall, we got to watch out here in Nevada and Utah in this area, down here in southern areas of New Mexico and southeast Arizona. And we certainly need to watch in this area that could see severe weather today. There is a slight risk of excessive rainfall here, 15% risk of flash flooding. And then the remnants of this tropical moisture is going to bring a risk of flash flooding for areas of Louisiana, over to Mississippi, Hattiesburg, over to Mobile, Pensacola, southwest areas of Alabama. A good chunk of Louisiana has a risk of flash flooding. And then an area that has a moderate risk. First off, you got the 15% risk in the yellow of flash flooding, but there is a small area right here. Okay, this is Harrisonburg. Was it Staunton? Hopefully I said that right. Charlottesville, up to just south of Winchester. 40% chance in this red area of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles in a given location. Flooding threat continues to be a big deal up here. So taking a look at region by region, this is the southeast, and we get this in motion. Come on, Tropical Tidbits, please. She's slow this morning. But we got some rains across Mississippi, some storms across the Panhandle. We got these storms across the Southern Apps. But this is an area we're going to zoom into, really Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia here in a second. Elsewhere, you can see a lot of the rain is pinwheeling around Georgia and South Carolina. But we do got a cluster of storms kind of in central Alabama, maybe this evening. So if you're out and about in the town in Birmingham, might need to dodge some storms. But Tropical Tidbits is just, struggling this morning. So we're going to actually just start to zoom into some of these areas. But Kentucky and Tennessee, this does show southern areas of Indiana and Illinois and Ohio. But as we start to work our way, say 3, 4, 5 o'clock, we got some storms bubbling up here near and just south of Lexington, Elizabethtown, Bowling Green, Clarksville. We got some storms down here in Tennessee. We keep this in motion. We begin to get, say, closer to 8 o'clock, and we just got storms out here. And listen, there's a marginal risk in place in this area, so just be aware of some of these storms packing a punch. And we move here in time, and heck, even this is moving slow. So might just be a glitch in the matrix right now. So Kentucky, though, a lot of rain over the next 36 hours. An inch or two of rain is possible, even up into southern Illinois, Indiana, especially, and Ohio. But down into the kind of the Cumberland Plateau, we could get in some of these purple to red areas 1 to 2 inches of rain in these regions. Once again, a lot of rain possible for the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina, all the way up into Virginia. And just a closer look at, say, Virginia and North Carolina. This is an area where we could get a lot of heavy storm activity today. So we take it to about 4 o'clock. You see the storms, and once again, just popping up in some of the same areas, western North Carolina, western Virginia, the foothills, the mountains. And then we get to 5, 6, 6. Man, just totally destroyed my flow getting into this portion of the video. But 7 o'clock, we got some storms up here in northern Virginia, southern West Virginia. We got some storms here, still just dancing around some of the same areas in western North Carolina. And then I just want to watch for some of these storms that maybe cluster up here in southeastern Virginia, northeastern North Carolina. But there is the higher wind threat with any storms that form over here. This is 10 o'clock. Not very widespread, but I mean, it could be more widespread than what models are showing. And, once we get to about midnight, could get some more storms sort of bubbling up down here. You see some storms clustering up. So, I wouldn't rule out more thunderstorms even overnight. But then taking a look at how much rainfall is expected between now and about 8 p.m. tomorrow, heavy rainfall. I mean, we got the moderate risk up in West Virginia. We got heavy rainfall forecast up in central to northern, even southeast. A good chunk of Virginia could go for 1 to 2 inches of rain But look at some of these heavier rain totals in western North Carolina. So be aware of that. Now, the Northeast today, most of the action is going to be kind of shunted south of PA. So you see all the storms kind of in southern Ohio, West Virginia. Then we got to watch out for these storms in Virginia and even into maybe Maryland, but really the Tidewater later this afternoon to this evening. But just taking a closer look at, say, West Virginia, because I do think you guys run a pretty decent flooding threat today. Now we go. We're moving faster now. So we start to get into 3 p.m. We get into 4 p.m. Some storms just dropping loads of rainfall, frequent lightning. We're probably going to get some severe thunderstorm watches closer to this area, but there's enough flow to hopefully we can avoid the big time flooding risk. But some of these storms move over some of the same areas. This is 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10, 11, and then we're going to do it all over again tomorrow. Like, for example, this is like tomorrow at 3 p.m., more storms firing over some of the same areas. So, once again, the rainfall forecast in this region between now and the next 36 hours, a lot of rain forecast. Southern Ohio even. The entire state of West Virginia, 1 to as much as 2.5 inches of rain as possible between now and tomorrow evening. So, South Central U.S., really only area to really talk heavily on is Louisiana. Just continue to get this tropical air mass in place, so a lot of shower and storm activity. Steady flow going across Colorado and New Mexico, so scattered downpours out here. And then we get into the overnight hours and things begin to diminish and calm down. But just a close look at our friends in Louisiana, just be on guard for some slow-moving tropical rains. They're not really moving a whole lot. So they're out here just kind of dancing around over the same areas, 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Jackson, Mississippi, get ready for a lot of heavy rainfall this evening probably. So a lot of rain could fall in this region. And, just taking a closer look at, let's see, rainfall between now and about 7 p.m. tomorrow. Some areas could get a couple inches of rain. Alexandria, an inch. Lake Charles, same thing. Maybe taking a break from some of the heavier rainfall in southeast Louisiana. But certainly a lot of areas could see heavy rainfall for sure. And this is supposed to be right here. And in the north central U.S., let's get this in motion here. Sorry about the small hiccups in this video. I'm not sure what's going on here. Computer just might be having a hard time this morning or something. I don't know. But Louisiana, it's probably my internet. Computer's fine. My internet's, I think, just having a hard time. But this afternoon, we're going to get some shower and storm activity up here in northern Minnesota. But, a lot of the action begins to get going, I would say, as we get into later this evening. And honestly, guys, it takes until about midnight, and we get some powerful thunderstorms that develop. And they could develop a few hours prior to this, but some very strong to severe storms are going to develop sort of right where South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, and Nebraska kind of come together. And this is going to be an area that's going to really kickstart a very active day for tomorrow also. And as you can tell, you're waking up tomorrow with an intense line of thunderstorms surging through Iowa and areas of Wisconsin. That's going to set the stage. Well, I think it's going to be a really nasty day for a line of storms that's going to go through areas of the Midwest and eventually get all the way into the Ohio Valley tomorrow. Huge slight risk in place. But I am going to zoom into all these states for you guys because that's just what I like to do here. But, Nebraska, some of these storms will kind of dip down into the northeastern areas of the state and, really pose a severe weather threat. Now, it's going to be more isolated, I would say, the further you get back to like North Platte. The storms will probably be more widespread in coverage, more intense up here through the northeastern portion of the state. So be careful up there. Do these storms even make it, say, down into, I don't know, do they even make it down into Omaha? It's a big question here. So, looking at Iowa, this is starting off around 6 p.m. Nothing's really going on out here. 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11, midnight, 1 a.m. We get into 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and then that's when the stronger storms begin to show up in the northwestern areas of the state. It takes that long. It takes all the way until after midnight tonight, and then this is where we have to watch out for a tornado threat. You got the 5% risk of a tornado in this area. We get into 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Look, this is 5 to 6 a.m. in the morning. We got some big time storms out here from Denison, Fort Dodge, Mason City. These are probably producing a lot of heavy rainfall too. So, just be aware of this as we're getting going tomorrow morning for your weekend. Iowa, take it slow. Get out there a little bit later. Let these storms pass because this is going to be a rocky morning across the state of Iowa for sure. Looking at the updraft velocity swath in this area, it does show some rotating and strong updrafts up here in some of these areas right into here. So just be aware of that. Looking at South Dakota, like I said, it just takes, my face might be in the way. So this is 11 p.m. It just takes all the way till about, I would say 11 p.m., midnight before these storms really get going. But Yankton, Sioux Falls, please, even up the Brookings, these storms could be up here. These storms could produce tornadoes, nocturnal tornadoes tonight. So just be aware of these storms here. I mean, they are going to have the potential to produce all hazards, very large hail, tornadoes, and just looking at the updraft velocity swath in this area, and I mean, it shows the potential for tornadoes here. Rotating updraft, stronger updraft. So, and then looking at, say, Minnesota, starting off around 10 p.m. This is 11, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. You see most of the storms are in the southern areas of the state, but we're also going to get some strong to severe storms in northern Wisconsin also. And just watch out central to southern Wisconsin later tonight for storms also. Now, the western U.S., just a moist flow this afternoon, this evening across the country. Across the western U.S. will be there. Some areas, across Idaho, Wyoming, surrounding states could get some strong to severe storms out of this. So we'll continue to watch that. And I don't know why I have this up twice. Got a little mixed up there. And then the eastern U.S., very hot temperatures across the southern tier of the country. Even where, temperatures don't get, the surface temperatures don't even get super hot. I mean, the humidity is going to be ridiculous. But if you live up here, it's nice. You're on the cooler side of this flow, so enjoy it. Western U.S., pretty warm also. And, tomorrow, severe weather threat, please be aware of this. And I'm thinking about making a video tonight on just this specifically, just because this is a more highly populated area. But, you got a severe weather threat starting off tomorrow morning from Des Moines to Chicago, up to Milwaukee, Madison, down to Indianapolis, Peoria, over to, Cleveland, Toledo, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Detroit, down to Columbus, all the way over to Erie. This is a pretty big severe weather threat for tomorrow. A tornado threat is at a 2% risk in these areas in the green. And then the wind threat, entire slight risk area that I just showed you, 15% risk of damaging winds. Hail threat, only at a 5% risk, but that could increase. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Appreciate y'all very much. And we'll see if we'll have a video this evening. Just got a Friday nights could definitely be pretty busy just with the family and stuff. But we'll see what's going on with it. You guys have a wonderful day. Have a great start to your weekend, and we'll talk soon.